All right, we're going to try this again here. Hang on, I think we're getting started now. Maybe. All right, we are going to try this again. Sorry about that, everybody. You know, technology is wonderful when it works right. It's a little frustrating when it doesn't work right. But thank you, everyone, for joining me today for Tim at 10. Today, we are going to go over some recommended policies that you can adopt or amend in your program post-COVID-19. I kind of feel like we're starting to slide out of this little situation we've been in for the last 3 months. But there's still a lot of things that are changing within our world, a lot of adjustments that we're having to make to what we're living in. And a lot of you are just now opening your program back up and trying to figure this all out. Several of you, like myself, we've been operating this entire time, and every week is a new week. Again, we're going to go over some recommended policies that you can adopt or amend post-COVID-19. Now, all of my disclaimers I have to give out there right here at the beginning. Disclaimer number 1 is that these are all recommended policies. You get to choose what is best for your program, best for your families and your employees, what policies are best for your community. All right. Disclaimer number 2 is everything we're going to talk about today is subject to the Texas Department of Health and Human Services and Child Care licensing. It's based on their current guidance that we have received, but subject to change if we receive any additional guidance moving forward. Right now, we are still under the emergency orders that were placed by Health and Human Services back in April. We don't know how long those emergency orders are going to be in place. When people ask me, how long do you think we're going to have these emergency orders in place? My response back is as long as COVID-19 or any other infectious disease is a large risk, we're going to have these type of stipulations. But there's no magical answer on how long do we think this is going to go on. If I knew the answer to that, I would be the most popular person in the world. We're just taking it day by day, week by week, and that's kind of all we can do at this point. All right. So again, I'm going to give you some recommended policies. You're going to decide what is best for your school, what is best for your community. If you would like, you can go to my website, timthetrainer.com. Many of you are familiar with my website. You've been there before. If you go to documents, right at the top of the page, you can download a document that I made up called Policy Updates Post-COVID-19. And this is what I'm going to go through this morning. But again, you can pull this right off of my website, timthetrainer.com, click on Documents, and you can download this document. But again, this is draft version. All right, this is all recommendations for you, but definitely things that we want to talk about, moving into this. All right, so I'm just going to jump on in. I'm going to try really hard to pay attention to the comments that are coming in. Sometimes it's really hard to see comments and questions whenever I'm also presenting the material, but I will do my best to try to stay on top of that and see what you guys are having to say or what you're questioning right there. All right. The only thing I would ask is that if you are making comments on the Facebook Live, try to keep it relevant to the conversation that we're having right now. Sometimes people throw a comment or a question that's way out in left field and has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, and that could be distracting for some folks. So let's try to keep it on target. Now, the first thing that hopefully all of you already have this in your policy manual. If you don't have this in your policy manual, I encourage you to make sure that you add it. COVID or no COVID, this is always a good recommendation. But in the introduction part of your policy manual, always make sure that you say something like, no policy manual can cover all situations, all right? And I tell you what, over the last, 3 or 4 months that we've been going through COVID-19, having that little sentence in my policy manuals has been a lifesaver, because when employees and parents have been coming back saying, well, what specifically does your policy book say on this or that? Well, a large portion of what we've gone through over the last 3 months, we haven't had policies on. So I've been able to bounce back and say, look, it says right here in our introduction, no policy manual can cover every situation. All right, some things are going to come up that you just can't plan for. We can plan for it now that we've experienced this, and we can anticipate things in the future, but you never know what's going to come out of left field. So having that in there, no policy manual can cover all situations. Great recommendation for you right there. All right, the first big policy that I recommend for your parent handbook, and many of you have been practicing this for the last 3 months, and so this is probably normal everyday life for you at this point, but your arrival procedures. I don't foresee the arrival procedures changing anytime soon, all right? With the parents dropping off at the front door, not coming into the building, I seriously do not see this changing anytime soon. And we've had a lot of conversation about this in previous webinars and previous discussions that many of you have agreed with me that over the last 3 months, we've seen a huge reduction in our illness exclusion. We're not sending kids home sick all of a sudden. And so, we've had a lot of conversation about what's up with that. Why is our illness exclusion down so much right now? Is it because of our enhanced health practices? Yes, probably. Is it because the parents aren't coming into the building? Again, I've said this for years that, our employees are very heavily regulated on hand washing and health practices. Our children are heavily regulated on hand washing and health practices. Who are the group of people that come in and out of our facilities every day that's not regulated? It's the parents. And so, it's kind of like it's no longer an opinion that parents are the ones bringing in a lot of the illnesses. I think at this point, it's been pretty much proven to be a fact, all right? We're stopping parents at the front door. They're not coming into the facility. Only those that are being regulated and following health practices, and boom, we have a reduction in illnesses. Pretty awesome stuff right there. So, go ahead and let's add this to our policies on arrival procedures, that upon entering the facility, parent or the adult dropping off the child must sign the child in on the sign-in sheet located at the front door. So that's changing from classroom to front door. A health check will be completed on both the child and the adult. I think that's critical right there. All right, if you have an adult that is dropping off a child and the adult is, has signs and symptoms of an illness, they've already contaminated that child. And now that child is bringing in whatever illness that adults have into your program. So we're going to be doing health checks on both the child and the adult. If either have a temperature or a sign of a possible illness, they will be excluded from care. All right. And then, of course, children being dropped off at the front door will be escorted to class by a member of management or a designated person. Parents are encouraged to drop off at the front door, but may enter the facility if necessary. All right. Remember, in the state of Texas, a parent always has a right to access their child, so you can never deny a parent a right to access. We're going to recommend that they stop at the front door, but of course, if they need to enter the building, when necessary, they can. I understand that, curbside and dropping children off at the front door has been a little difficult for some people. I will tell you from experience, it's been a lot easier than we anticipated, all right? And the more we do it, the more comfortable everybody gets. and it's really working well. And we have a lot of parents and employees that are loving this new procedure. Parents especially have told us time and time again that they hope we continue to do this. It's making the transition easier. It's making it quicker. It kind of seems to be a win-win right now, much to our surprise, all right? Now, the only thing I've got to say about this new arrival procedure and policy is that I really need y'all to reflect and evaluate how you're communicating and how you're connecting with those families. The connection between you and the family is a critical part of the child's social and emotional development. So with us only having limited interaction at the front door, we're really going to have to, think outside of the box when it comes to family connections and getting to know those families and being present to those families. So we're working on that as we move through this, but we don't want to lose those connections that set us apart and make that difference in our program. All right. But I don't foresee a lot of issues with the arrival procedures and picking up procedures and the front door situation. Just make sure that you put in there that, again, parents may enter the facility when necessary. All right. The other thing is illness exclusion. Now, again, this should not be anything new to anybody. It's the same thing, the CDC recommendations that we've been following for the last 3 months. Again, I don't think this is going to go anywhere anytime soon. I don't think it's going to change, all right? So the same enhanced illness exclusion, the cough, the shortness of breath, the chills, the shaking, the muscle pain, the headache, the sore throat, diarrhea that cannot be contained in the diaper, or feeling feverish or a fever equal to 100 degrees or greater. And again, these are all coming right off of the CDC recommendations. Now, the big enhancement that I'm recommending that you make to your policies right here, and this is going to be the one that's going to be hard for some people to swallow, but we've got to think about the big picture here, all right? We got to think about the big picture. You are responsible for taking care and keeping, 200 children safe and healthy, or however many kids you have in your program. So you've got to make decisions that are in the best interest of everybody. My recommendation is that you change your illness exclusion, that the child must be fever-free or symptom-free without medication for 72 hours. Yes, 3 days is what we're recommending. Honestly, I don't think you're going to have a lot of pushback from parents on this, because parents are just as conscious about health practices and keeping everyone safe and healthy as everyone else. And, we talked about this in some of our previous webinars. We're going to see a huge increase in the number of families working from home. All right. So they're basically bringing the children to our facilities for their early education, but also just so they can get their work done at home. There's going to be a lot more flexibility for parents to keep their children home whenever they're sick and still get their job done. So I don't foresee this being as big of a headache as some people may anticipate right there. I got a really good question here about what are we going to do about picking children up from elementary school. I'm going to put a pause on that question since we are at the beginning of summer right now. I think that once we get back to school time coming up in August, we're going to see a whole new set of policies and processes that we're going to adapt to. So I'm kind of planning on doing a couple of different webinars just for after-school programs and supporting the needs of the after-school children, because this is going to be a totally different line of business for us and how we do things. So, but that's a very, very good question, and I didn't want it to go ignored. Let's just put a pause on that because I think that there's going to be some new things coming around the corner. And there's just so many rumors right now on what the school year is going to look like. We just don't have the concrete information at this time to decide how those processes are going to look. All right. So If you have a child or an employee that has seasonal allergies and they have signs and symptoms similar to some of the COVID-19 signs and symptoms, I understand it. It's Texas. All right, we've got this. You're going to have to just play it safe, folks. All right, you're going to have to make decisions that are in the best interest of every single person in that program. I know it appears that the child has signs and symptoms, and the parent saying it's just allergies, but what if it's not? All right, what if it's the rare situation where it's not seasonal allergies and the child really has been exposed and has the infectious illness? You allowed the child to stay, you just placed everybody at risk. So, we're still in that time period where we just can't take any chances. All right, you just can't take any chances. So that's going to have to be a case-by-case situation for you, but you're going to have to make a decision that's in the best interest of your whole program. My whole take on this is I'd rather be safe than sorry. All right, it is what it is. All right, the other big policy, boom, big policy that most people did not anticipate and did not have in their policy manuals, but you will now after this one, is a pandemic tuition policy. So in the event that we go through this again and you are forced to either close your school or have limited access to your school, like we did this time, we could only accept parents that were essential workers, so we had limited access. What is your tuition policy going to say about this, and how are you going to address this? Now again, you're going to write a policy that's in the best interest of your school, all right? This is just a suggestion or a recommendation for you. The way I've drafted my policy at this point is that, should the center need to close for a pandemic reason, full tuition will be due for the first 2 weeks of closure. If the center is closed longer than 2 weeks, 50% tuition will be due. Parents may give a 30-day notice to withdraw from the program if they feel it's in the best interest of their family. 50% of the tuition will still be due during the 30-day period, and the parent will be required to pay a full registration fee upon return. All right? So, we've got to protect our financial interest. We have to be able to keep our business open. When the parent returns, to the program, they want to return to a program still in business, all right? So I know it's not comfortable, but you're going to have to draft a tuition policy that is going to create some financial stability, all right? I like the 50% because it's helping you stay in business, but it's also giving the parent a break, but you're going to draft a policy based on your business needs. Now, I don't have this addressed in my document that you can download from my website, timthetrainer.com. Click on Documents. You can download what I'm going through right now. But I've been getting a lot of questions about, with the enhanced health practices, with the recommendation to run lower ratios and have smaller group sizes. And again, those are just recommendations. They are not requirements. You cannot be cited by licensing for the ratio or group sizes. But it's strongly recommended that you follow the lower ratio and group sizes. But a lot of people have been asking me, are you going to increase your tuition? Or should we increase our tuition based on these enhanced policies? Well, again, you're going to have to make a decision that's in the best interest of your program. What I recommend that you do is you need to do a brand new cost of care analysis, all right? And if you need assistance on how to do a cost of care analysis, I have an online training on my website, timthetrainer.com. Go to online training, scroll down. They're in alphabetical order. There's about 80 different topics on there, but one of them is figuring cost of care. And I would do a cost of care analysis based on your current situation. So what is your enrollment today? Okay, not your capacity, but what is your enrollment? What is your attendance? And then what are your expenses today? We are spending more money on sanitizers and disinfectants. We're spending more money on gloves and PPE material, your personal protection equipment. We're spending more money on disposables, those type of things right now. So you want to do a cost of care analysis based on your current situation and then determine what you're going to need to charge tuition to be able to cover all of your expenses and keep you financially afloat. All right. So for those people that have called me or emailed me and asked me about increasing tuition, that's my recommendation, is doing a cost of care based on your current situation. All right. Many of us have experienced a huge reduction in enrollment. So that definitely has a big impact on the financial part of our business. All right. Now, getting back to my document right here on suggested policies to adopt or amend, with us going to 72-hour illness exclusion, the recommendation of following the CDC guidelines and doing a 72-hour illness exclusion, I believe that we probably need to enhance our absent credit policy. For those of you that give your parents, a little bit of a break whenever their child is absent, I think that we probably need to look at our absent credit policy with the 72-hour illness exclusion. So you can see here the way I've drafted a sample policy is that if your child is absent due to an illness exclusion for 3 consecutive days, you may request an absent credit equal to 1/2 of the tuition for those days absent. Parents must request an absent credit in writing by email. Absent credits are not automatically given when the child is absent. All right. So, again, understanding that we're putting a little bit more exclusion on the families, so giving them a little bit of a leeway right there. All right. I see a couple of questions popping up on the Facebook Live about medications and giving out medications. I'm going to stick to what our current policies and processes are on administering medications. We prefer not to administer medication at the school. The risk and the liability is ginormous, all right? Now, there are some medications that are protected under the Americans with Disability Act as a reasonable accommodation to a special need. That would be like your breathing treatments, your EpiPens, your behavioral management drugs, blood sugar testing for children with diabetes. These are all considered reasonable accommodations to a special need. You have to do those type of things. Otherwise, my current medication policy is that we prefer not to give medication at the school. We will give medication only when it is prescribed more than 3 or more times a day. All right. We will only give medication that is prescribed 3 or more times a day, and we will only give the middle dose. All right. If a medication is prescribed once a day, the parent can give that at home. There is no reason for us to take on that risk if the parent can give it at home. If the medication is prescribed twice a day, again, they can give it before they drop off. They can get it whenever they get home. There's no reason for us to take on that risk if it's only prescribed twice a day. So 3 or more times a day, we'll give the middle dose. That's it. All right. And then I start questioning if a child has a medication that they're getting 3 or more times a day, are they healthy enough to be in care? All right. So we need to do, an assessment at that point on, is the child healthy enough to be in care? My recommendation to you always is don't give medication unless you absolutely have to, because the risk and the liability is huge, huge. All right. All right. Something else that's been very, very effective for us over the last few months during this COVID-19, and I anticipate that we will continue to do this. We will definitely continue to do this in my programs, but having employees and parents sign a disclosure statement. The purpose behind the disclosure statement is that, getting everyone to understand that when you have your child enrolled in a licensed childcare program or after-school program, you have to make decisions that are in the best interest of every single family in that program. And if you have a family that's going out into the community and placing that child at risk of exposure and then bringing the child to us, that parent is now placing everybody at risk. So we need parents to make safe and healthy choices. Now, I am not telling any parent what they can and cannot do after hours, what they can and cannot do in their personal life. I am not trying to dictate that, all right, nor am I trying to govern that. I just need the parent to make healthy choices, all right? And with the disclosure statement that Ronald McGuckin has put together, childproviderlaw.com, strongly recommend you check out that website. But the disclosure and agreement statement that Ron and his team has put together is basically just telling the parent, if you don't make a healthy choice, you have to notify us, all right? If you have done something or taken your child somewhere that may have exposed them to a risk, you just need to communicate that with us because we have to make decisions that's in the best interest of everybody, all right? So it's not us trying to tell parents what they can and cannot do. It's just we have to make healthy choices. So now the disclosure and agreement statements have changed a little bit since they were originally written because the guidelines set out by the CDC and our local governments have definitely loosened up a little bit. So as those guidelines loosen up, then obviously what we have in our disclosure and agreement statements loosen up as well. So basically I have in here that the parent understands that outside of care, in order to control their child's exposure in the community, they will comply with all state, county, and local mandates. All right, so whatever those mandates are at the time, and they're changing weekly right now. They will notify the school if you are aware of any person in which the child has come into contact with, and I put in here, test positive or presumed to be positive for COVID-19 or any other infectious illness, all right? Because there's a lot of rumors going around about another wave of something coming, all right? We don't know what that something is yet, so let's go ahead and start addressing the something that may be following this. So basically, with the disclosure statements on both the employee and the parent handbook, it's just keeping open communication. It's not dictating what people can and cannot do. It's just keeping open communication that is critical for the success of your program and keeping everyone healthy. All right. We've installed hygiene stations outside of our building. So before you enter the front door, it's basically a hand sanitizer station. The company we used is called Wedge. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of other companies that sell these, but they were very affordable. Mounted it onto the brick wall so that parents and employees can get their hand sanitizer before they even enter the building. And we got some really nice professional signs that we put up there that, you need to use the hygiene station before entering the building. Added that to the policies just so that will be covered as well. Also added in here out-of-country travel. So again, communication. If a parent or the child or the employee for that part travels out of the country, they must notify the center management. If they travel to a country that is on the CDC's at-risk list, then the child or the family may be excluded. Again, you're going to handle this on a case-by-case basis. Now, when I was putting all of this together over the weekend and getting ready this morning, this next recommended policy is probably going to be one of the hardest ones for everyone to swallow. And I'm waiting for the chat screen on the Facebook Live to go because it's about to explode. Breathe, everybody. Breathe. You've got this. All right? Take a deep breath. Let the information sink in. You've got this, all right? But, we talked about enhancing the illness exclusion policy for the children, and especially a child that has signs and symptoms of an illness need to be excluded for 72 hours, symptom-free, fever-free, without medication. Well, if that's going to be our policy for the children, it needs to be the same policy for the employees, all right? Now, hear me out on this one. Hear me out, because I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think I've come up with something good, all right? So yes, employees that become ill or have signs and symptoms of an illness, they need to be excluded for 72 hours as well. Now you might be thinking, I'm going to lose my employees for 3 days. Yeah, you are. But the staff need to be treated the same. Because a lot of times when we do have illnesses that spread rapidly through our programs, it's because we are allowing children employees to come back too soon. All right? We need to make sure that we're keeping everyone healthy, including the employee. Now, you need to prepare for this. Now, most of us, because our enrollment is down, then, you've got a lot of extra staff right now, so I don't think it's going to be as painful as you may believe it to be so. I did add in here that when an employee is ill, they may not return to the facility until they are symptom-free without medication for 72 hours. I don't know what your policy is on paid time off. I don't know how your employees earn or accrue that. But I did add in here that employees may use earned paid time off when they are absent due to an illness exclusion. Employees who are absent more than 5 days and do not have earned paid time off may be subject to disciplinary action, including termination of employment. So this does not give them a free pass to just take a whole lot of time off. If they miss a lot of time, then they're not going to have a job. All right? Now, what I believe is going to happen right here is that sometimes when employees wake up in a poopy mood, they think, oh, I'll just call in sick today, missing 1 day of work, no big deal. But when we write it into our policies due to COVID-19 and infectious disease guidelines, if you are sick, you're going to miss at least 3 days of work. I think it's going to be interesting how the employees are taking better care of their health and being more conscious of when they call in sick. All right. So I think this is going to work in our favor, not against us. And, we've had many situations along the way where, we've had to have difficult conversations with employees that go, if you're getting sick so much, all right, this may not be the best place for you to work. All right. Your health is very, very important to us. All right. And if you're continuously getting sick while working here, this may not be the best place for you to work. All right. So there you go. I got a question that just popped up on Facebook Live about requesting a doctor's note. Those of you that have been in my sessions in the past, you'll have heard me say this, but I really don't care about a doctor's note. A doctor's note does not do anything for me. All a doctor's note does is verify that the person was or was not sick. It doesn't fix the problem, all right? The problem is that I don't have a teacher in the classroom. The problem is that I need somebody consistently in the classroom. A doctor's note does not fix my problem. It does not give me a consistent person in the classroom. It does not give me employees that come to work on a regular basis. So I really could care less about a doctor's note, let's be honest. It doesn't solve my problem, all right? All it does is verify that they were sick. But again, if they're getting sick a whole lot, then your facility is probably not the best place for them to work, okay? All right, so there's my little soapbox on doctor's notes. All right, it's a big old waste of $35 in my opinion. All right, many of y'all have watched my webinar on enhanced health practices. I hope that's been helpful to you. I know that it's been very, some of those practices have been really awesome in our program, and we're seeing some good stuff coming from some of the processes that we're putting in place. But the material sharing, so again, going to go ahead and add it to our policies and processes. that, we're going to give the children individual boxes of material, and we're going to discourage sharing material when possible. And when age appropriate, okay, guys, y'all got to remember we're working with young children here. So we want them to share. That's part of their social development. But whenever we're dealing with items that could cross-contaminate, we're going to have to take some extra steps now, all right? But I know my teachers have been giving me feedback that they love the individual boxes with material because the children are learning more ownership. They're taking pride in their materials, and it's working really well for us. The other enhancement that we've been making over the last couple of months that I don't think is going to be going anywhere anytime soon is food service. And y'all know that this breaks my heart, all right? It really, really hurts my heart, and I've been having to deal with my upset. But I'm a huge advocate for family-style meal service and all of the social development that goes along with family-style meal service. But at this point in time, it's just not a good idea. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add it to our policies and processes that we're going to serve individual lunches, individual plates. And then my other recommendation to you is to avoid reusable dishes right now. And again, this contradicts so many of my previous trainings that I've given, prior to COVID-19, but we're having to make a full circle now and recommend using disposable cups, disposable plates, disposable spoons to reduce the risk of cross-contamination and then also just reduce the risk of sanitizing and disinfecting. Now, again, I'm going to circle back to earlier in the webinar when we talked about figuring cost of care and deciding whether or not you need to increase your tuition. Take this into consideration that you're probably going to be spending more money on disposables because we're trying to reduce, the risk right here. Also, your mask, your gloves, all of your personal protection equipment that we need to make available to our people at this point in time. All right. All right, I got a question about, does Health and Human Services notify directors whenever there is a change is made? Yes, they've been very, very good with communication here lately. It's being emailed out, it's being posted on their website, so they're doing great. Now, I know that some of you sometimes don't get those emails, sometimes you don't get those notifications for whatever reason. We have noticed in the past that certain email providers don't like licensing emails and they kick them back. That's what I'm here for. I try to keep you updated on what's going on so that you do get this information. So there you go. All right, I just got this question from someone this morning. I got an email about mixing children and combining classrooms. I know that this is increasing your payroll cost. I know that it's very difficult, but at this point in time, I just don't recommend mixing children or combining classrooms. I strongly recommend, and so does the CDC, that children stay in the same group all day long and you don't mix them. You don't combine them on the playground. You don't combine them in the cafeteria, in the chapel. The children stay with their group all day long. And like I said, I understand that that's going to adjust your payroll cost. But, remember, you've got to make every effort to, put policies and processes in place to protect the children and to protect your employees. If by chance you were to have a positive case of COVID-19 and someone were to come back and try to sue you and hold you liable, you're going to have to prove that you made every effort to keep everyone safe and healthy. All right? So when you're mixing and combining children, you're putting a lot of risk and liability on your shoulders. So you're going to do the best you can, okay? And that's what I've been telling everyone for the last 3 months. Do the best you can. But I don't recommend combining or mixing children. So I went ahead and drafted a little policy right here for the employee handbook. Employees are not to combine classrooms or mixed groups without the approval from center management. Combining classrooms and mixing groups is strongly discouraged unless absolutely necessary. All right. It is very, very critical that you draft a policy about personal protection equipment. All right. And making sure that personal protection equipment is available to your people at the center. And this would be like your mask, your gloves. I know that some people are going to face shields because then you can still see the face. I also was reading something last week about the face shields. Protect both people, you and the people you're coming into contact with, where the mask really only protects one side of it. So, interesting stuff about the face shields right there. But from a liability standpoint, you want to make sure that you have personal protection equipment available, and definitely encourage you to get this into your policies as soon as possible if you don't already have it there. I got a question about, summer camps. We are doing our summer camps. I think that as long as you are following all of the recommendations, you're following all the guidelines that have been put out there for us, I think summer camps should be able to go on without a hitch. I mean, are things going to be different? Sure. There's going to be a few things that are different with your enhanced health practices. We are not doing any field trips. That's the only difference in our summer program, is that I did put a pause on all field trips. But as long as you're following all of the recommendations out there, I don't see any reason why you can't have a successful summer camp. And I'm working on a webinar probably next week on that particular topic, because I want to make sure that we're still meeting social and emotional needs while we're practicing all of this distancing and those type of activities. All right, great. And unfortunately, and I know this is so hard for some people to hear, and a lot of you are dealing with your upset, but at this point in time, no in-house field trips either, because we do have to limit the number of people that are coming into our programs. And that's under the emergency guidelines set by Health and Human Services right now. So hopefully that'll change in the near future, but it is what it is at this point. All right. So again, going back to the emergency guidelines that came out by Health and Human Services back in April, you cannot have people coming in and out of your program unless it's a parent. That's when it's necessary, someone from a regulatory agency, or someone providing special services to someone with a disability. It is what it is. All right. And then, of course, the employee disclosure statement, very similar to the parent disclosure statement. But again, when employees are out off work in their personal life, they need to make choices that are safe and healthy, because if they don't make a safe and healthy choice, then they're placing everybody in your program at risk. So again, just communication. If an employee does something that they feel place them at risk, they must notify center management, and that will be handled on a case-by-case basis. All right. I got a question that should you put summer field trips, that summer field trips are suspended due to our situation. Should you put that in your policies? It's not a bad idea. It's never a bad idea to put anything in your policies and processes. We call that CYA, and y'all know what that stands for. Cover your assets. All right, cover your assets. Great. And then the disposable items. So that is my list right there of recommended policy, either amendments or adoption of policies. You get to determine the length of time that you want these policies to be in place. Do you want it to be a temporary policy? Do you want it to be in place until further notice? You're going to have to make that assessment in your program. You know what? Nancy just asked a very good question, and I actually had every intention on putting this in my document. Oops, I made a mistake. Do you allow backpacks or lunch kits? Here is what we are doing in my programs. Very good question, Nancy. High five for keeping me on track. We are not allowing any outside items to be brought into the program with the exception of the infant room. All right. So, bottles and stuff that need to come in from the infant room are the only exception. But we are not allowing pillows, blankets, backpacks. We're not allowing nothing into the program but the child. All right. So we have gone out and purchased some very lightweight fleece blankets. They're $2.50 at Walmart. And then some travel pillows that we were able to order off of the website, off of the internet. Very, very affordable, so that we are providing pillows and blankets and then putting those in individual bags that stay at the center. The more you allow in and out of your program, the more at risk you are. All right. So when you're allowing kids to bring things in from home, especially if it's cloth or fabric, that's going to carry the germs and the viruses, more than anything. So we want to limit that stuff. And I want pillows and blankets that will fit perfectly in that child's cubby and will not touch anything else. So we had found it would be better to, we found it would be better for us to provide the pillow and the blanket rather than having to police this with the parents, because some of the parents send in a king size comforter and a king size pillow for their 2-year-old, and there's no way you can store that safely in their cubby. So we just found it easier to provide the pillow and the blanket. We are asking parents to bring in 3 sets of a change of clothes. All right, 3 sets of change of clothes. And in that way, if the child does have an accident, we'll send home that, 1 set, but then we've got 2 others there. So the whole goal here is to limit the amount of items that are being brought in and taken out. We want to eliminate that as much as possible right there. All right. So I got a question. There's a lot of you that are faith-based on here. A lot of you that are part of the church and faith-based. So you've got shared space situations. Let's take a moment right now to send well wishes to all of you that are in a shared space situation. Because your facilities are being used on Sundays, on Wednesday nights, but then they're also being used for the licensed facility. And that could present a lot of cross-contamination opportunity right there for you. My suggestion to you, and I'm not trying to push a sell, all right, but my suggestion to you is to check out Greg, the chemical guy, and check out his double defoggers, and, order those double defoggers that will disinfect the entire room. And on Sunday, after the church uses your classrooms, bomb the classrooms. On Wednesday night, after the church uses your classrooms, bomb the classrooms. That is my best suggestion for you. Or you're going to want to work with your church to make sure that they are thoroughly disinfecting the space that they are using before you use it for your license program. Now, best case scenario is to not have any shared space going on right now. But I know that for a lot of you in the church, it is what it is. All right. So there you go. I'm just taking a quick glance of some of the comments that are going on out there. And yeah. Oh, okay. Here's a good question right here, Tracy. Great question right here. How do you deal with parents that don't like your policies? This is probably the easiest answer I get to give you. If a parent doesn't like your policy, they don't come to your program. It's really simple, all right? You either follow my rules or you don't come here, all right? That's the wonderful thing about being private business. You follow my rules or you don't come here. Same thing with employees. If an employee doesn't like your policy, they don't get to work here. It's really, really simple. I say this in my trainings all the time. Parents don't run your business, you do. All right, so you keep it really simple. Here are the policies and processes that we are following at this time. If you don't like them, there's the door. Okay, was that easy enough for you? All right, great. Okay, so I hope this was helpful information for everyone. I'm sure that, we will continue to draft policies as we move through this transition. We will continue to amend current policies as we move through this. This is just, step one, everyone. This is step one. I'm sure that we'll have a step two somewhere along the way. All right. Y'all hang in there. Do the best you can. Keep everyone healthy. Make the best decisions, all right, for all parties involved, all right? You've got this. Believe in yourself, all right? Believe in yourself. Everything that we're going through right now is just making us stronger, all right? It's just making us stronger. I will post a link for an online worksheet as soon as this Facebook Live is done, so that those of you that want a certificate of completion for attending today's Facebook Live, you can complete that worksheet. For those of you that missed the Facebook Live, I will post this video on my website for those that weren't able to catch it today or want to watch it in the future. All right, I will see everybody later this week. I'm going to do an updated webinar training on supporting children's self-esteem. So catch that on Wednesday, and then I'll have next week's schedule posted very, very soon. Everyone have a wonderful Monday, and thanks for joining me. Y'all make safe choices.